Hi, welcome to Coding Bible channel. In the last video, we created a new project and we have seen these files and folders. And now it's time to explain what are these files and folders. Okay, so .angular is just a folder specific for Angular, and it's safe to delete it if you want, but it will be created again. Okay, and .vscode is specific for vscode. Node modules is the folder that contains the libraries that is required for your project, and this folder is the result of executing npm install command. Of course, we did not execute it directly, but when we used ng command in the last video, Angular execute it for us. Okay, so this is the result of executing npm install. Okay, now this folder is the folder that contains anything about your application, and it is the source folder. As you can see, the name, it's abbreviation, it's src for source. Okay, now inside the source file there is an app file. It is a default component that's created by Angular to represent the root component. Okay, each component has four files, which are these files. Okay, but don't worry, we will explain what is component in another video, and we will speak about all these files in details. Okay, but for now it's just a component. Okay, and these two files specific for configuration for the application. For example, this is the file where you will write the routes of your application. For example, if we opened Angular website, when we, for example, click here, we find that this is a new URL. Okay, so in this file, we will specify that for example, for this URL, you will open a specific component that is responsible for this for this view. But don't worry, we will explain what are Angular routes in future videos. Now, what is app.config.ts? It is specific for configuration for the application. Okay, and it is new for Angular 14, but now it is become default for Angular 17. But in Angular 14 and 16 and 15, these are not default. Okay, but because there is update that we will talk about when we talk about what is single page application and how it works, because main.ts here is also different, and there's update, and I want you to know the old methods and the new methods to be familiar if you are working with old projects. Okay, so don't worry, we will explain about main.ts and app.config in a future video, but for now main.ts is just the entry point of your application. For example, if you before studied C++, Java, C#, of course you will find that there is a function called main that is the entry point for your application. This is the same. Okay, so in Angular, this is the entry point for your Angular application. Okay, and it includes the root component and the configuration. Okay, for your application, but don't worry, we will explain this in details. Okay, then we have the assets folder. The assets folder is just the folder in which you will add your photos, for example, fonts, or what files you want to include. Okay, and it has an empty file. It's .gitkeep. This is just an empty file to make or to force Git to upload this empty folder, because Git doesn't upload any empty folders in the GitHub repository. Okay, so this is just to force this process, or to force it to upload empty files. But if you added for in the future, if you added images or fonts, it's safe to delete it. It's okay. Okay, now we have favicon or favicon.ico. It's just this icon that appears here in that place. Okay, and index.html. Index.html is a single page of your application. We are creating single page applications. So this is a single page that represents your application. But don't worry, we will explain how single page application works. And then we have styles.scss. It's clear that is just a file to write your CSS code. Okay. Now we will speak about these files. These files are specific for development time. Okay, so this file, it is the editor config. From its name, it's just configuration for the editor or for VS Code, for example. But when we could use this file, if you are working in a team, in a company, and each member of the team use a different code editor. For example, you are using VS Code, another member use Eclipse, for example, and the company wants each one of you to write the code with the same formatting. So to force this process, they specify the specifications for the code formatting in this file, and each one of you will use this file in his in the project, in his code editor, to make the code format is the same in all code editors. Okay. However, some code editors are not able to read this file, and they need some extensions. For example, VS Code needs extension called editor config for GS. For VS Code. Okay, this one. Okay. So this is why this file is here. Okay, then we have .gitignore. It's from its name, it's just to make gitignore some folders and files. For example, we don't need node modules because we can get it again using the command npm install. Now angular.json, just configuration for your application, configuration for the development, for the production time, for the testing time. Okay, and of course we will need to edit something in the future in this file. So now let's talk about package.json and package-lock.json. Package.json contains three parts, or the three important parts. First one is scripts. Okay, when we want to, for example, execute a complex command, we can just write the command here and give it a name and run it with npm. For example, we used ngserve to run our application. Okay, but also because we write here ngserve and we have its name is start, we can just write npm run start, and npm will run this command for us and will run our project. Okay, this is why scripts here. And then we have dependencies. These are the libraries that you need for your project, and all these libraries will be or the code of these libraries will be with you in the production. Okay, but in this part, these are the development dependencies in which we have the libraries that we need only during the development time. For example, these are specific for testing, so we do testing in the development time. Okay, so now what is package-lock.json? Okay, each library of these libraries depends on another libraries, and these other libraries depend on other libraries. So all of these libraries are found here, and you can see this is about 12,000 line. For example, let's see something clear. Okay, for example, this is an Angular library. Okay, and it depends on another libraries, and this is the same as you can see. For example, this one depends on all of these libraries. So npm will install all of these libraries in this part, in this folder. As you can see, there are a lot of libraries and node modules. So now let's talk about readme.md. It's just a text file. You can write documentation for your project that you need to be shown in GitHub repository. Okay, And these files, tsconfig, tsconfig.app.json, and tsconfig.specification, all of these are just configuration for TypeScript compiler. But why there are three files? For example, if you open this extends this file, so it looks like this is the main one. But why we just make it like this? Okay, this is specific for the workspace, not for the project only. So what are workspace? This window contains, in this window we open workspace with one default project. So what are the difference between workspace and the project? We will talk about this in another video because I don't want to make this video so long. Okay, but for now you have to know that these are the configuration for TypeScript compiler. Okay, and this is the end of the video. And if you have any question, just tell us about it, and or write your question on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever platform you are using. And thank you for watching.